I love you. So as part of the Le Mans Esports launch, part 1, I interviewed Stephen Hood and James Allen about the initiative, and then the rest of the weekend I spent exploring the world of WEC. In this part 2, I take a walk down the pit lane and down the paddock, just having a nose around, and then in part 3 we've got more action to come from a grid walk before the race. But let's look at part 2 first, see what it's all about. Hello, you. So here you are joining us in the pit lane tour before the race at the WEC, and wow, look at it, look how many people there are. It's an absolute hive of activity in the pits today. You see all the fans gathering. Of course, behind me I've got Jenson Button, of course he's back, there he is, SMP Racing. I've been watching a video of him online, very bumpy, very stiff the car. It looks like a great challenge for him to drive, but he's here in front of the British supporters. He loves it. It's great to see him here and all the access as well that the general public have to the pit lane in comparison to, say, Formula 1 and the paddock. It's a great atmosphere. If we look all the way down here to my right, and you've got, obviously, Fernando Alonso is going to be down the far end, of course, with the Toyota Racing team. Anthony Davidson's here today as well, and he's Dragon Speed racing with, of course, Pastor Maldonado, many of you remember from Formula 1 fame, Formula 1 winner. And, of course, it's going to be interesting to see, I think, the midfield battle. I think the Toyotas are always going to be miles down the track, but certainly there's a really good midfielder. This is all part of the atmosphere of WEC. It's great to be here, and I'm going to continue through the day and give you my thoughts as to what it's like coming to an event like this if you've not been to one before. But certainly if you want to get pictures of your racing driver right now, you can look at the crowd. Amazing. Everyone's getting stuck in. I'm going to go and take a look myself, and then we'll see what else we can find here today. But let's see how we go. Okay, viewers, well, from the madness of the pit lane to the paddock here, you can see outside Toyota, obviously the hive of activity. We've got Fernando Alonso, and we've got a crowd here waiting to see him as well. Just saw Sebastian Buemi and Kamui Kobayashi come by as well from Formula 1 fame, of course. It's always great to see Formula 1 drivers at these events, and over the past few years it's sort of brought it to life, of course, with Mark Webber and Porsche and all that sort of thing. It's just a shame that top level isn't always here competing, but at the same time the technology in the Toyota is remarkable, winning Le Mans and on the front row here as well by 2 seconds. It really is a dominant performance by the team, and you can see the crowd that it's brought along, and that's great for WEC, you know, in terms of bring it together for the manufacturers. So we look down the pit lane here as well, the paddock, shall I say, here as well, and you can see what a huge paddock it is. I mean, when you come to Formula 1, this is sort of double the length, 3 times the length to, say, the Formula 1 paddock, and also it's so available to the general public as well. There really is an air of atmosphere that is amazing in terms of the access that you get. It's sort of on another level. If this was Formula 1, we wouldn't be allowed anywhere near this area. We wouldn't be allowed to film, and you know, I think the general public as well, it's very restrictive in that sense. So it's nice that you can get up close to personal with the drivers. You can see the drivers, get photographs of them. You can see them in their motorhomes. You know, it really is a sort of fusion of the corporate world and the sort of fans. And I think giving fans access is really important. But we're going to take a little wander down the paddock, see what we see, and then look forward to our grid walk, which is coming up in the next hour as well. But let's see what else we find. So let's have a little walk down the paddock then. Of course, we've got Toyota there, which is obviously huge in terms of lots of people there. Ford Performance. We've got the Ford GT, of course, which they were showing with Forza Motorsport a couple of years ago. You know, it was a really big announcement as well. I mean, that was really important for the world of racing games to see Forza Motorsport, you know, revealing the new Ford, and of course competing so well here. Andy Prio racing in the Ford there, and it's great to see, you know, Guido van der Garde racing there as well, and it's great to see these ex-F1 drivers, great talents really, that don't always have the sponsorship to compete at top flight Formula 1, able to compete here and use their racing skills. I think that's the thing I always like to ask racing drivers is, can you bring more to the car in this sport? And you can. There's really not much you can bring to Formula 1. There's so much that's done by engineers that when you take the driver, there's not much a driver can bring in terms of performance in that way. We're coming down and we'll see Anthony Davidson soon. We're Bruno Senna there. Bruno Senna breaking his foot, Rebellion Racing. Bruno Senna, we were meant to meet him yesterday actually, and sadly for him he broke his foot, and so he's not at the race this weekend. Andre Lotter in that team as well. Great names, great racing drivers. You know, that's the thing, you know, there's a lot of racing talent, and a lot of fans, they come and they, like we say, you've got a stack of people at one end for Fernando Alonso, you've got a stack of people at the other for Jenson Button, But there's racing talent all over this pit lane. I think sometimes people look at the results in Formula One and they judge someone entirely by their results in Formula One. And you say sometimes, we were talking about drivers there that perhaps were only ever in a mid-team. They never had the chance in a top-tier team to get anywhere. We've got the Porsche motorhome here. Well, I say motorhome, the motorhomes are there. We've got a whole huge area for Porsche. Obviously massive for the world of WEC, but I mean in terms of the sponsors and the investment, I think this is a testament to how important they still see it, that this level of investment still comes into it. On the one hand, it's such a shame that we're not seeing them competing at the top flight against Toyota at the moment. It makes you wonder when Porsche are going to make that decision to come back again. Obviously there's other things happening in the motor industry and decisions have been made as we try to avoid getting run over. Walk along. It's funny actually, we've got the Golf racing livery you can see over there, of course. Classic livery, always looks great on a racing car, never going to be dated. It has real racing heritage to it, and I think always adds to the sense of occasion, atmosphere when you see these old teams. It's a bit like Formula One, I guess. We talk about Williams and we talk about McLaren, and potentially losing those teams would be a disaster for the sport. And it's important that they can, various teams can compete here as well. See the Alpine motorhome. It's nice the way they've got all the drivers listed. We've got Dragon Speed here. Look, this is where, of course, Anthony Davidson is this weekend. He's racing with good old Pastor Maldonado. There he is. We've missed Pastor over the past few years, of course. Always brings a bit of action to the paddock in Formula One. And if Anthony was here, I would try and grab him to say hello. But he's not here at the moment. If he was here, I'd grab him. We had a little word with Anthony yesterday, and it was always interesting to talk to him about the detail of the cars, route to media, other Porsche areas, VIP areas for sponsors. And you look at the level of investment here, these trucks cost a fortune, these motorhomes are still expensive. I mean, still, you talk about Formula One, you're talking 150 million starting budget, 200 million to run a car, really. When you're talking a team like this, it really varies. I would assume that you start off with sort of really 4 to 5 million really to run your team. If you look at various different championships where you start off needing 50,000 and 100 and 250 and half a million. In a way, a big part of the cost involved is sponsorship, is hospitality, and a lot of investment goes into the hospitality side of motorsport. The drivers, they race the cars, but they also, it's a lot of delivering to your sponsors, the people who have backed you, the people who put your money in. It is very expensive at all levels. I'd like to say that, as we know with Formula One, talent is 20% and the rest is going to be making the money to get there. With this, at least you could say, well, talent's probably the 70%, and then at least you still need the money to get there to an extent. Getting to this point is nigh on impossible for most people. So we come down here and we've got BMW. And on BMW sort of working to improve their performance all the time. Obviously we were with Ben Green at the British GT recently, and BMW doing really great in the British GT4s. Taking the front row at brands. Obviously, these, you only have sort of 6 races in a season. British GT has 7. You've got limited chances to prove yourself. All the circuits are very different, and then that depends on the nuances of your car. We're going to catch up with Ben when we get back to base at some point. We're going to talk about his season. A bit of coverage, if it's not been on the channel already, at the British GT weekend, and talking to him. We'll work our way down now. And we see the FIA. Nice big building for the FIA there. And when you think about Le Mans, the great and the good that have driven there. I mean, back 30 30 years ago, and we see Alan McNish there as well, having a chat with a few guys. Again, great racing driver, good to see him there, and it's always nice to see these guys, watching them racing for years, and then to me it still means a lot to just see these guys in the flesh that you've followed for so long in various categories. And it's, I suppose in a way, we're here for the Esports this weekend, which shows, the fact that I'm even here says, look at the progress that's been made from a video game perspective in getting games recognised by the racing companies in terms of their potential. But it's certainly been amazing. We've got the SMP Racing, of course, where Jensen is this weekend. Do we have him on the board? No, we don't. We do. Have I missed Jensen? He's around here somewhere, but obviously the fans have all moved, so one assumes that Jensen's hiding away in a motorhome somewhere. And then down the end here we have Ferrari, and I assume we have the tyre area, of course, Dunlop. And this concludes our tour of the paddock. It's a nice atmosphere here. It's very different to the Formula One in that sense. The Formula One is quite restricted. It's when you get into the Formula One paddock, there's a kind of energy of safety, of you're surrounded by these very special people and everything. But in here, there's more passion. There's more interest of racing drivers and motorsports, and it really creates a wonderful atmosphere. So a wonderful atmosphere in both paddocks. It's been great to have a walk around here. We'll see what else we can find at the event, and if not, we'll check it all out on the grid. So I very much enjoyed my stroll. Nice casual stroll down the paddock, and of course the pit lane was absolutely crazy, wasn't it? Great atmosphere. But that's it for part 2. There'll be more from me in part 3.